Hi, 7th grade. Here are the answers for part 1 of your 6.3 notes. As you know, this section has to do with Native Americans on the frontier. And during this time period, there were a lot of conflicts between European settlers coming to the Americas and Native Americans, because obviously these European settlers are settling on Native American lands, and let's face it, not many people would like other people coming onto their land and saying, hey, this is our land now, tough luck. It's kind of like somebody coming into your house and saying, hey, you don't live here anymore, this house is ours, without having any right to say so. So first question says, what Native Americans lived on the frontier? So you should have names like Chickasaw, Choctaw, Seminole, Cherokee, Shawnee, Potawatomi, Sauk, and Fox. They should be the names that you should see. They also can be found on page 325 on the NAP titled Native American Groups in 1820. The next question says, what did the Cherokees do in order to preserve their land? So a lot of times Native Americans, what they would do is, in order to quote unquote get along with their European counterparts, they decided to adopt different European customs. So this could be simple things like European ways of eating and farming and cooking. It could be dressing in European style clothing, speaking English, so on and so forth. Next question. What did the government think of the Native Americans east of the Mississippi River? And the government believed that they stood in the way of westward expansion because remember, Americans during this time period had a huge belief in manifest destiny, which was the belief in the fact that the United States should stretch from quote unquote sea to shining sea or the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. How did they originally try to get the Native Americans to move out of the way? So they did a couple of things first. First, they would attempt to convince them, saying, oh, there are much better lands out west. Now, remember, a lot of these groups have solely lived in the eastern part of the United States. They're used to living there, so going out west, there were different Native American groups, so that would have caused even more conflict. Other ways would be that they would bribe them through money by paying them for their lands. But then eventually the U.S. government got tired of doing that, so they technically, at this point, are just forcing them off of their lands. In one particular state, which is Georgia, there are a couple of examples of Georgia passing laws trying to get Native Americans to up and leave. And a couple of these laws were passed in 1825 and 1827. And basically just stated that the Native Americans had to give up their lands and leave, that they had no claim to these lands anymore, that the lands belonged to Georgia. So in order to fight back against this, the Cherokee Nation, which if you look at the map lives in northern Georgia, in 1831 filed a court case against the state. The court refused to stop Georgia from enforcing its laws against the Native Americans, meaning the court sided with Georgia and not on the side of the Native Americans. Then there was another court case called Worcester versus Georgia. And in this court case, the court ruled that Georgia had no right to enforce its laws within Cherokee territory. So we have two controversial court cases here. One that sides with Georgia and one that sides with the Cherokee Nation. Now, there was one Chief Justice who was there during both of these court cases. His name was John Marshall, and he believed that under the Constitution, treaties are the supreme law of the land, and Georgia had no say over what took place in Indian Territory. Meaning, if the United States government made a treaty with the Cherokee Nation in Georgia, the state of Georgia itself had no right to say that the Cherokees couldn't be there. And then the last question is, what did Jackson believe about Worcester versus Georgia? And Jackson believed that Georgia has the right to intervene in Indian Territory. And this is kind of the darker side of Andrew Jackson. We tend to view him as, the president for the common people, brought regular Americans into politics in the United States. But in reality, Jackson had a dark side. Jackson would do whatever he possibly could to strengthen the United States, even if that meant removing Native Americans in the process. And you'll learn with the next group of questions that he is most well known for the Trail of Tears, which is the forced removal of Native Americans to Oklahoma Territory. So if you have any questions, please let me know.